Welcome back to the Growing Band Director Podcast. I'm here with Terry White. Terry, how you doing?
Great.
Awesome. We're doing a six-part series here on lots of jazz rep from grades 1 to grade 3. And we're going to divide this up by grade level and give you some analysis and tips on each chart.
I think it's great because there's so many great charts out there. Some of them aren't even in print really anymore, but you could find them if you looked hard enough. And they're just sort of not on people's radar until you hear them played by another band. And you say, wow, that's great,
Yeah.
So if you can share all these ideas, which you've done here, this is terrific.
And we both believe that grade level doesn't matter much.
Right. Yeah. The cover of the color of the cover, forget that. I mean, you want it to work for your band, and that's most important. And even if you have a high school level band, you could have a book of charts that you could use for senior citizen night or whatever. They don't always have to be grade 4, grade 5 things.
All these charts swing. All these charts are great.
Right. They all work.
Yep. So the first one we're going to do is an arrangement by Mike Story of the Great Blues Centerpiece.
Yeah, it's a great tune in the jazz repertoire that the kids should have, they should be aware of. And the chart works really well because it's not that it's an easy chart, it's easy to put together.
Mm-hmm. Let's check it out. Terry and I were just talking that with that chart, obviously you can do lots of improvisation stuff. It's pretty easy to put together.
Yeah, have all the kids learn the melody. You might have to print out a lead sheet for the kids who don't have the melody on their part. And then, in a performance and a rehearsal, you could select who's going to play the head on that first chorus before the full ensemble. That chart also has some very solid piano voicings, which are accessible to kids that don't read changes, and they make sense.
And if you have every kid learning the head before they learn their harmony part to it, nothing like learning the third trumpet part, but you don't actually know the melody of the tune.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a great tune, even for a high school level, if you want to spend the time in your rehearsal teaching improvisation, because you can get right to the improvisation. It will take really very little time to learn this chart. And then you can get to that. You get down the road and it's festival time and you've had rehearsals canceled for whatever reason. You could always fall back on this chart as a last minute insert in your program and reap the rewards from the improv that you've been teaching.
Some people call it a warm-up tune.
Yeah,
you use it a warm-up tune. Yeah. And you could also teach that tune by ear, depending on the level of your kids and all that. So, okay. Next tune we're going to do is also a B-flat blues. This is Beantown Blues Parade by Rick Hirsch. This is a second line chart. This is, from what I've heard, the easiest second line chart, but it's authentic and kids love it. it's such a great gateway chart to second line music.
Yeah, I made a note that for the directors who want to expose their kids to the style, but you don't want to invest a lot of time into the chart. And then once the kids start to buy into the style, because this is going to be a big change for kids, you know, if they're not used to this. And then you could set a goal of getting to Mudbug over a period of time.
Yeah. And this is as a gateway chart, like you can start talking about tailgating, which is where, I know you know this, but like in case people don't, when they were in the flatbed of the truck in the parade down in New Orleans, the trombone players had to put their feet in their slide out the tailgate so they didn't hit other people.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you keep bringing up the stuff that old people should know that,
All right. Great chart. Let's go on to the next one. This is a great arrangement from the movie Mr. Grinch. What's the name of that movie? Mr. Grinch. The Grinch. The Grinch. Okay. The Grinch. This is You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch, also by Mike Story.
Yes, I was just looking at the one prior to that. I was on the wrong chart. I just made a comment. You can't listen to this chart and not smile. I mean, and my wife's totally into the whole Grinch thing with the grandkids. So,
and does it go up a whole step at the end? I forget.
I forgot too.
Yeah, there's a modulation at the end. I think it goes up a whole step.
And it's a great tool for teaching legato jazz tonguing.
Yeah, do. Yeah.
So
that's great. Let's check it out.
One of the things that it's really important for a lot of jazz bands to get out fairly early in the season, and you can participate on your holiday concert, but nobody wants to be rehearsing Christmas tunes in September, but sometimes in middle school, you have to start early enough. So the Grinch would be perfect for that. It doesn't take a lot of time to put together. You can get a performance in December, and performances are very, very important, regardless of what you're really playing.
And the great thing is that with YouTube, you can look up all kinds of lists from the publishers of Christmas jazz,
right,
holiday jazz, because there's tons that swing.
Oh, there are, and you invest a lot of time for that one performance. I remember on Don Doan's band, Willie Maiden did this beautiful medley called the Christmas Suite, and he wrote it for Maynard Ferguson. And Don would play it every year. We'd play it twice on the same program because it's the only time we get to play it all year. So
there's a chart we didn't include here that I use. It's a grade 1 Christmas chart. It's called Who Let the Elves Out? It's wicked funny. You get the kids screaming and the audience and all that. It's fun.
Yeah, I mean, it serves a purpose for that. And if the kids are having fun and your audience is digging it, but your kids are getting a chance to perform fairly early on, and that's valuable.
The next chart is actually a pivot from what we talked about. The next chart is one of yours. This is a chart on the Joe Henderson tune Mamacita.
This a tune that I wasn't overly familiar with at first, and I think it was Phil Rich may have done it with one of your combos years ago. That's a very cool tune.
And Conrad Herwig did it at Maine Allstate.
Okay.
Combo.
And Pete Barenbreg kind of assigned it to me when we were coming up with tunes. I love the tune. I thought it was great. Solid young band, jazz chart, even eighth notes.
And what do we call it? Is it Latin jazz? Is that the phrase?
Yeah, it's that, I guess, because it's more Latin than it is rockish, during the time frame when it came about. With the arrangement, I tried to keep it combo sounding. It's not really doesn't sound like a big
tenor 1, trumpet 1. I think have the melody.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. There's some ensemble hits and spots. The twist is the extended send off to the solos is the shout rather than the traditional shout at the end of the chart.
And this one also, if you had a trombone section, we talked about this summer, the trombones don't get the melody. So if you have a band where your trombones maybe are a little weaker, this might be a great chart for them.
Yeah, it would work. I think even when we do, my practice has been lately with grade 1 and 2, if you have trombones, there's going to be some cues or doublings in the tenor or bari to kind of help out with that.
Also, if you like this chart and you have a good trombone section or a great player, just give them another part. Give them the tenor part.
Sure.
Feature them, like just alter the chart and it works.
One of the things I was thinking about recently was if you wanted to go buy a suit and you went down to Kohl's or one of the places, you buy one off the rack, probably pretty close to fitting. But if you're built like I am, it's not going to necessarily be great. So you want to get it altered. You could buy it there and take it to a tailor. I know recently I had to buy a new suit coat, but when I conduct, my arms come up, and all of a sudden it looks like my sleeves are too short. Well, how much do I add to that? So I took it to a regular tailor to make it look good. You can do that with charts. Take the chart as the basic sport coat off the rack and then make it work. There's nothing wrong with doing that. And a lot of these charts, it's pretty simple to do. Just it takes a little bit of time. You don't have to be proficient in Finale to be able to do it. Just write it out by hand.
All right, here's Mamacita, arranged by Terry White. When I did Mamacita, I had kids just play the F minor pentatonic. And so even just 3 notes, I mean, you can do very simple improvisation on that tune.
And I know there's some people that feel that younger students would have difficulty learning to improvise with a swing style. I'm not in total agreement with that, but the even 8th note thing would be even easier, I think, for them.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's a great improv tune. Next tune is The Chicken. Where's the chicken come from? What tune is that from? Is that originally Weather Report, Jocko?
Oh, the Chickens
or is it
in the
that?
standard rep.
Yeah.
Because I think Chris Berg brought it to the forefront with his great chart.
Yeah.
But here's a way of thinking: if you were into the total program, even if it were 2 different directors, this chart would work well at the middle school. Introduce the kids to the tune with the intent that when you're in high school, you get to Chris's chart. And
it's a fun tune. It's a really fun tune. It's kind of like Saturday Night Live. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of us need to think about the long term, not just within the year, but if you've got a jazz band at middle school and you're dealing with, say, 7th and 8th grade, look at the total picture over a 2-year period, and then look at the even larger picture about what these kids are going to be doing in high school and have a game plan. That doesn't mean you stick to it. I pick these charts. This is what we're going to do. You could be a little flexible, but have a long-term plan. I think a lot of times directors come back in September and they're at square one for the year. And I've had directors say, well, I can't really pick my charts until I know what I have in the band. Well, I think you can have a plan.
Yep.
You know.
And then you can change the plan, but have a plan.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right, here's the chicken. Again, arranged by Mike Story. The next chart is a great Cannonball Adderley tune that you arranged called Jive Samba.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I'm familiar with the tune, but when I grew up, because one of the most popular shows in the 60s was Laugh-In. And I never equated that. Throughout the show, I'd hear da 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 da, and I never equated it with this tune. Somewhere somebody did along the line. So when I went back and was starting to research this tune to do for Alfred, and I said, oh, that's where that comes from. It just never dawned on me. And because of the dissonances in this chart, it's a great chart to get the kids to think about playing in tune in unison. And then we start adding, the ninth to the minor third underneath, and that dissonance is created, which is really great for this tune. But I've had directors sometimes, I don't know if it was on this chart or another one, where I did a similar situation where we had the dissonance, actually email me wanting to know if that was a wrong note. Well, what was happening was the kid playing the bottom half of the half step was hearing it, and it was irritating to them, and they were probably trying to play the note up to get to the companion note next to it. And I said, no, that distance is right, but you got to get them to play it in tune.
And also a tune like this, if you're doing a Cannonball Adderley tune, which we have a few on this episode series, it opens you up to listen to Cannonball.
Oh, sure.
And also, you're a big proponent of you don't have to do a ballad. Right? It's all about change of pace. So this is a tune that actually might work as a second tune, could work as a first tune, could work as a third tune. It kind of works in a lot of different ways.
All things being equal, coming out of the pandemic, obviously, we were a lot more flexible about things. But prior to that, there were middle school bands that would do a ballad because they had grown up with that, the concept of, well, you have to do a ballad. No, you don't. In middle schools, it's tough to do a ballad, because even if you play everything according to what's on that page, it's tough for the rhythm section to support that chart.
Yeah.
A pro level or even high school level student, they'll know what to play and where to play it in a ballad.
Yeah.
But in middle school, there are sometimes it just plods on and never ends.
And if it slows down, that's the death of it.
Oh yeah. So. And drummers don't really have the chops to play brushes at that point in time. So they're playing something with sticks, or they're using brushes and playing like they're playing ding, 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 and you can't even hear it. So,
all right, here's Jive Samba, arranged by Terry White. the next chart is written by Patrick Broadbent and recommended to us by Becky Mallory. It's called Crank It Up.
It's a boogaloo style, which, interesting enough, I grew up through the 60s, and I can honestly say I wasn't familiar with boogaloo. Again, going back to that show, Laugh-In, they would refer to these dancers as doing a boogaloo. And so when I was doing the upcoming chart on Alligator Boogaloo, I went back and researched that. And it was sort of a way for them to the African rhythm style, along with the contemporary rock style that was going on for jazz players to get involved with. So again, that's from a historical standpoint, that's really important for the kids to be aware of.
And again, like all these tunes, this is a great tune to blow on. It's B-flat blues. All right, let's check it out. Here is Crank It Up. Again, our last chart for this episode is Alligator Boogaloo, again arranged by Terry White. This is the Lou Donaldson tune.
Right. One of the fortunate things for me as a writer, Pete Berenberg, my editor at Alfred, turned me on to a Lou Donaldson tune several years ago. It might have been Foot Patent Time.
Yeah.
And that I was just fell in love with the tunes for he's a happy player. In the same way that we listen to Clark Terry play, and it's just cheerfulness in their playing. And I find that with Lou, and a lot of similarities between him and, maybe not from a technical standpoint, to Charlie Parker, but the sound and some things that are pretty unique that I really enjoyed. And as I started to listen to more of his tunes, I think these are very accessible for younger kids, and they work really well. And again, the Boogaloo style is important for the kids to learn. It's pretty straight ahead B-flat blues, open for solos. The kids will hear it as a rock, but that's a good stepping off point to explain what Boogaloo is. It's not really anything difficult for them to learn. So,
yeah, kids love this chart too. Great Barry part.
Yeah, that's yeah. Barry players always end up with the short end at middle school. All
right, here's Alligator Boogaloo.
We sincerely appreciate you taking your valuable time and listening to the Growing Band Director podcast. Your students are very lucky to have a band director like you. If you have any suggestions for episode topics or think you have an area of expertise to share on a show with us, please reach out. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to help spread the word, please give us a 5-star review and tell your band director friends to subscribe as well. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, our YouTube channel, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening to The Growing Band Director. See you next week.